And we are back here on the GSMC football podcast. And for the second part of the show, we're going to take a look at the college football matchups from this weekend, games from this weekend. We'll recap them as well as the early window games from Sunday as well. So we'll go back to Friday. Obviously, there were two games. The big game was Washington and Oregon. We also had Liberty and New Mexico State playing. That was a very high-scoring game. Liberty won that game and covered the spread. They ended up winning 49-35. They were actually, I think they were down early in this game. It was back and forth. New Mexico State scored a touchdown to start the game. Then Liberty answered with a touchdown. Then New Mexico State scored again to make it 14-7. Then Liberty tied it. Then they were up 7. Then New Mexico State tied it, and then it was tied at the half. Then Liberty scored a touchdown on their first two possessions in the second half. Then New Mexico State made it a one-score game. Liberty missed a field goal. Then it was tied. Then they went up 42-35, and then they went up. Then New Mexico State threw a pick. Liberty, turned that into points, made it 49-35. And that was the final score in that game. Like I said, very high scoring. So yeah, that was the Conference USA championship. And then for the Pac-12 championship, you had, of course, two Heisman candidates going at it, Bo Nix and Michael Penix. Very exciting game as well. Oregon was down 20-3 at one point during this game, so it didn't look good for them. They did get a touchdown at the end of the first half. They went 7 plays, 75 yards. Bo Nix connected with Ferguson for a 2-yard touchdown. So that made it 20-10 at the half. Then Oregon, coming out of the second half, they went on a 15-play, 75-yard drive to score a touchdown. So that made it a 3-point game. Bo Nix again connected with Ferguson for a touchdown. So, yeah, that made it 20-17. Then Michael Penix threw a pick, and then Bo Nix threw a pick. And then Washington turned over on downs. And then Oregon went up 24-20. 3 plays, 62 yards. So, yeah, it was 24-20. So, Oregon came back, but then Washington answered with a touchdown of their own. So, that made it 27-24. And then Oregon punted. Washington scored another touchdown. And then, Oregon had a chance because then they had a really quick touchdown drive. Bo Nix connected with Holton for 59 yards. They had to review it because they thought he went out of bounds, and he tiptoed down the sideline and scored. Then it ended up being 63 yards because that ended up being the touchdown because they thought he stepped out before the end zone. So, yeah, it was a 63-yard touchdown. But then Washington was able to, get first downs, and the clock ended up. Oregon didn't have any timeouts at that point, and they used all their timeouts, and yeah, that was it. Washington ends up getting the win, 34-31. Bo Nix went 21-34, 239 yards, 3 touchdowns and a pick, and then for Michael Penix, he went 27-39, 319 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Washington is now in the college football playoff. They're one of the 4 teams in it. So, yeah, that was a tough loss for Oregon. But, so that was the games from Friday. And then you go to Saturday. Texas beat Oklahoma State 49-21. That wasn't really a game at all. Texas really dominated the game. Michigan won 26-0 over Iowa. I don't think really anyone is surprised by that. Florida State won 16-6 over Louisville, and they actually were left out of the college football playoff, which is a big controversy, which is something we'll talk about at some point during the week, because now we have the 4 teams. We got Alabama and Michigan. They'll be playing each other. So, in Georgia, and we'll get into Alabama and Georgia here. Alabama winning 27-24, and that knocked Georgia out of the college football playoff. And that was a very good game. It was back and forth. Georgia scored first to put themselves up 7-0. Alabama kicked a field goal to make it 7-3. Then they were ahead 10-7. They were up 17-7 going into the half. Then Georgia kicked a field goal in the third quarter. Alabama kicked a field goal, make it 20-10. Then Georgia scored a touchdown to make it 20-17. Then Alabama answered with a big touchdown drive to put them up 10, 27-17. And then Georgia scored a touchdown to make them. They were able to run out the clock and win, and now they're in. They're in. So that was a tough loss for Georgia, especially because they're the defending champs. And now they don't really get a chance at the national championship. But yeah, Alabama gets in. So so the matchups, and they're obviously they'll be coming up at some point. So you have Alabama in, you have Washington, you have Michigan, of course. But yeah, I mean, Florida State getting left off as well. It's that was definitely tough. Again, something that we will touch upon at some point. But yeah, that was definitely tough. And even the head coach said, like, what's the point of even playing, the games, if you're just not gonna let us in. So, yeah, and then Texas, that was the other team that's in as well. Especially because they beat Alabama in Alabama. That was one of their big wins this year. But yeah, so those are the four teams for the college football playoff, and like I said, we will go into more detail with why a lot of people are talking about Florida State getting left off of the getting left out of the college football playoff. So now let's get into the early window games from Sunday. So Chargers and Patriots. Chargers winning 6-0. Not really much to say about the game. It really just was. It was terrible. Because I had Red Zone on the whole time. Because the only game I was able to watch was the Jets-Falcons game, and I'm like, I'm just gonna watch Red Zone, and I was better off doing that. But yeah, nothing really much to say about this. I mean, Bailey Zappi started for the Patriots. Patriots are now 2-10. I mean, it's just what a mess. I mean, you never would have thought you would have to say that the Patriots are 2-10 with Bill Belichick as their head coach, but that's the case. So then we go to the Lions and the Saints. Lions winning 33-28. They were up 21-0 after the first quarter, and the Saints, they came back, they battled, but the Lions were able to pull out the win. Jared Goff was decent. 16-25, 213 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. The Lions ran the ball for 142 yards. Sam Laporta was their leading receiver. He had 140 yards in this game. Amon-Ra St. Brown had 49 yards receiving. So each of them had a touchdown in the game. And then Derek Carr actually got hurt in the game, so Jameis had to come in. Taysom Hill was their leading rusher. He had 49 yards and a touchdown. Alvin Kamara had a good game. He had 2 touchdowns. He had 51 yards on the ground. Chris Olave had a good game, 5 receptions for 119 yards. But the Saints dropped to 5-7. Lions improved to 9-3. They get themselves back on track. Falcons and the Jets, another game that just I had to put on Red Zone. I'm like, I'm not watching it because it was the only game. There was no game on CBS, so we had to watch that. Well, I didn't watch it. Like I said, put on Red Zone. Trevor Siemian played in the game for the Jets. Tim Boyle, started the game, 148 yards, no touchdowns, and a pick. I mean, Desmond Ridder, the Falcons, went 12 for 27, 121 yards, 1 touchdown. no interceptions. The Jets, they turned the ball over a lot in this game. Well, not a lot, but, they had 3 turnovers, if you want to call that a lot. Trevor Siemian lost a fumble, Dalvin Cook fumbled, and Tim Boyle threw a pick. But yeah, Jets dropped to 4-8. Falcons are 6-6, and they lead the NFC South. So right now it looks like they might win it. They do play the Bucs next week. If the Bucs win, then that makes it a different conversation. But right now the Falcons look like they are gonna win the division. But I don't trust any of these teams. So then the Steelers and the Cardinals. So there was 2 weather delays in this game, and the Cardinals ended up getting the win 24-10. Kenny Pickett left the game with an ankle injury, and it looks like he's going to be out for a couple of weeks. So Mitchell Trubisky is going to be the starter. And, it was not a good game for the Steelers. Kyler Murray, he was okay. Didn't really throw for a ton of yards in the game. He went 13 to 23, 145 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. James Conner, his homecoming to Pittsburgh, 25 carries, 105 yards, and 2 rushing touchdowns in the game. He was great. Trey McBride, their young tight end, he's becoming a stud. 8 receptions for 89 yards and a touchdown. And Cardinals get the win, improved to 3-10. Steelers dropped to 7-5. So we'll run through these games quickly. We got a couple minutes left here in the segment. The Colts and the Titans. This game went to overtime. Colts improving to 7-5 on the season. 31-28 was the final score. Like I said, this game went to overtime. Gardner Minshew went 26 of 42, 312 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. That was a big win for the Colts because I thought they were going to lose at one point during the game. The Titans actually went ahead in the game. In overtime, they kicked a field goal, but the Colts went down the field and scored the touchdown. That was to Michael Pittman, to end the game. So that was a big win for the Colts. They improved to 7-5. I mean, credit to them. I mean, because not a lot of people really expected them to do anything this year. And like I keep saying, this team is going to be good next year. So. Then we get to the Broncos and the Texans. This was a good game. Texans win 22-17, though, snapping the Broncos' winning streak. Russell Wilson had 3 picks in this game. I will say, though, not all of them really were his fault. Like the last one, he was just throwing it to make a play because there wasn't a lot of time left. I mean, you're trying to win the game. And the first one was tipped. The second one, he underthrew that ball to Sutton. He went 15 to 26, 186 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 picks. Broncos ran the ball for 118 yards in total. Cortland Sutton had 2 receptions for 77 yards and a touchdown. That touchdown throw by Russell Wilson to Sutton, that was a great play. So then for the Texans, C.J. Stroud actually left the game briefly, but came back in. He went 16 to 27, 274 yards, a touchdown, no interceptions. And Nico Collins was their leading receiver, 191 yards receiving and a touchdown. Their rookie wide receiver Tank Dell is going to be out for the season. It was the rushing touchdown that led to him getting carted off. So yeah, he's out for the year. And that was a good connection between those two, and it's unfortunate that had to happen. But the Texans, they still get the win, improved to 7-5. Broncos dropped to 6-6. So then the Dolphins and the Commanders, last game I'll talk about here. Dolphins winning 45-15. This was just never really a game. Dolphins dominated from start to finish. Tyreek Hill, 157 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns. Tua had a good game, 18 to 24, 280 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Devon Achane had a good game. Raheem Mostert had a good game. So yeah, the Dolphins improved to 9-3. And the Commanders dropped to 4-9. So that is all the games from the early window. So we'll take our second break of the show, and then when we come back, we'll talk about the late window games as well. Before we do that, I just want to remind you guys to tip or donate, get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the following link. That is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you, the viewer. Once again, the link is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. So when we come back, we will talk about the late window games from yesterday. So stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.